off the back of that video, last video, let me go in a bit here now on this. Looking at things differently now. Okay. Let's talk about countries such as Nigeria that obviously may be lacking in development. Because this incident has highlighted things where you could be one of the richest sportsmen in the game. You know, you could come off your best victory, be all in the papers, all in the news. Money's no object. You have the perfect life, and things like this show you that in certain places you're no better than anybody else. You know, and that's, you know, obviously I'm not saying it in a bad way. I'm saying that generally with regards to, you know, there has to be a standard. I believe this has to be a standard. And then people say a lot of things about the NHS. Yeah, I'm saying this about in regards to this whole incident with AJ and the sad passing. And I'll say again, you know, rest in peace to Sinner and Lats, who two of his childhood friends. A big rest in peace. I'll say that again. But it'd be nice if their passing did not go in vain. I say that with the greatest respect, because looking at this again, what shocked me is the response. So we're not just looking at infrastructure here, but we're looking at social values, social morals, yeah. And I'm well aware that Western countries are going to Africa with the intention of an agenda, yeah, on the pretense of that same thing, you know. Obviously, you know, we all know about birth control, who's behind it, big business, vaccinations. We all know who the key players are in that. They go to Africa. Okay, we're going to vaccinate. We're going to teach them birth control. We're going to teach them, you know, they try and like promote feminism intentionally. They've said, they even say this themselves. Okay, whether it's Gavi, whether it's the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they say this themselves. Okay, right. But on the other side of the coin, yeah, that's the agenda side of this coin. But other side of the coin, yeah, I mean, what comes with developing countries is also a level of education. Yeah, and I'd like to think, because although education does not necessarily mean it ties into morals sometimes, I'd like to think there'd be an improved standard of living and levels of respect, decency. Because going back to what happened here, an accident is one thing, but seeing two respectable people that are respected on the floor like that, that's unacceptable for me. Okay, as I see it. Now, with regards to infrastructure, okay, as we know, Nigeria is wealthy without question in resources. In turn, Nigeria receives billions of aid from across the world, all over. Okay, so how can it be? Yeah, how can it be that the infrastructure there is not in place in this country? Okay, now a social commentator, Lynn Mai, has actually said a few things. Yeah. Now, for me, I'm not of any political persuasion. Yeah, I like to see what I believe to be true, based on rationale, and based on what's right or wrong. Okay. There are some things that a Trump will say that are correct and right. There's some things that maybe Kamala Harris may say that are fair and just. Maybe some things that Keir Starmer may say that I agree with. And there may be some things that Kemi Badenoch may say which I may agree with too. Okay? Right, okay? Now, let me just use a few words here from the social commentator Lynn Mai, okay? Regarding Nigerian infrastructure. So if I have an accident in Nigeria, no police or ambulance will show up. The UK and US in recent years have paid approximately 10 billion to Nigeria for infrastructure. Where has it gone? Even the government is awful. Why are these billionaires and millionaires, the burners, the whizzes, copies of this world, putting money together for a workable amount. Why aren't these millionaires and billionaires, the burners, whizzes, and copies of the world, putting money together for a workable emergency service like the Jaws do in Stamford Hill? Okay. Or how the London Air Ambulance is funded with donations and corporate partnership sponsors. Okay. There's too much money in Nigeria for there not to be an emergency service, surely. Can't argue with that. Some people have. But the arguments have been based on deflection, saying, why is she bringing up Cuppy for? Is that the only millionaire she know? No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about, is she right or is she wrong? In essence, she's right. Where that money goes? In bent corrupt officials' hands? Does it go somewhere where obviously the country is in debt? Because as we know, bigger countries come in. They may build something there and then build monuments or bridges and then tell the same said country, you're in debt to us for building that. We want something in return. Whatever it is. Okay, we know the game here. Okay? But it takes something like this to highlight certain deficiencies in countries that need to be developed. Okay? And it seems they need to be developed for their own good, as it seems. Now, this is what's interesting. This is what's really interesting now. This is my opinion there, and this really gets a bit deep. As we do. The far right, let's say the right, for example, yeah. One of their objectives, yeah, is we've seen this with some of the words of Charles Kirk and other far right commentators. What they want is for other countries, developing countries, underdeveloped countries, whatever. They want basically people of colour in general to stand alone, be independent, to do their own thing. Okay? Now, in opposition to that, and this is going to be a bit controversial, the liberal left want to keep and retain that plantation and just keep you there. Basically keep things as they are. Yeah? Keep Nigeria as it is, and we, the West, as it is. Okay? Now, what needs to happen is, I'm going to minimise all that, because to make it make sense, I think the right would rather have people being independent and doing their own thing, as opposed to not being independent and mixing and mingling with them. Simply put, okay? So let's use that analogy and put that in terms of countries, yeah? Basically, let Nigeria do their own thing, give them some kind of standard, at least a minimum, at least an orderly standard, yeah, which you see in some developing countries, yeah, or some countries that have kind of got there, that have more or less got there, yeah. Let's look at Eastern European countries, yeah, because from what I've read previously, the GDP isn't that much different anyway. So let's say we shake things up with Nigeria, all these countries, bring them up a bit, where there's a sufficient infrastructure, yeah. And not necessarily for their own good, because the right they want, no, I'm thinking that, but so they have their own infrastructure, their own thing going on, so they wouldn't need to come over to us. Okay? That's where it gets deep, that's the money shot. That's what it's really about, okay? But as it stands, these countries are held down, so we can say, oh, look at them, they're uncivilized, look at us, we're superior, like Trump said, you know what Trump said about these countries? What kind of whole countries he called them? But ultimately, if they were decent countries and self-sufficient, doing their own thing, then maybe, just maybe, well, two things. Either keep themselves to themselves, but on a more extreme level, if it was to be all equal, if we live in an all equal world, yeah, and we were to give them their own devices, then again, the game would change. And the roles will reverse, right? But hey, that's another conversation. But giving things back to the infrastructure and the debate, yeah, etc. Okay. One of the concerning things was not just morals and points of view and perspective, but again, values, They should not be concerned about having mobile phones running around and being online and taking pictures and video and things, and in this case, people's passings, yeah, like that. They should be saying, hold on a minute, mate. These things are just vanity things to keep us in check, keep us appeased, keep us, distracted. What they want to be doing, want to have a country that's self-sufficient, and boy, they have people all over the world. There's wealthy Nigerians all over the world. Maybe there needs to be some kind of coalition where they can just get resources together. And to be honest, it benefits them as well. Because if they can get their own thing going, then they benefit from that. Because right now, from what I'm seeing, all my people, these are rich people who go back and forth from Nigeria to England, UK, and these guys are very, 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 very well to do. Extremely well to do. They probably have more wealth than the average, dare I say it, Caucasian working class or even middle class individual in this country. They have more wealth and more capital, probably. And that's how deep it goes. I mean, let me just leave it there, but, I've been very fair. Yes, I've questioned the port infrastructure, but on the other hand, I've said there's opportunity and the things that they can be done. I mean, if the right were to if the right were to jump on this, which I probably would do, and say, look, see how civilized they are? That'll be the general right-wing opinion. But there'll be some smart critics on the right who will say, guess what? Let's get Trump in there. Let's have a smart city. Let's develop it a bit. Let's make profit out of that. The flip side of that will be a standard of living which will be acceptable in Nigeria. But hey, I digress, and let me leave it there. The whole purpose of this video is just simply to have talking points where we can look at things and analyse things from a different perspective. But having said that again, I do wish AJ the speediest of recoveries. And again, rest in peace to those poor boys that passed away. Alright then, take care. Bye bye.